Hello and welcome back to the Karma Stories podcast. I'm Rob and I hope you are having a wonderful day today. Today I have 3 stories for you from the Malicious Compliance subreddit. The Karma Stories podcast is published to all major podcasting platforms, and you can also read along on YouTube under our @Karma Stories podcast handle. If you have a story you'd like to submit to the podcast, you can do so by email at karmastoriespod@gmail.com. Before we start, just a quick announcement that I've now released 12 new colors of my Karmen Chameleon 3D printed Karma Stories channel mascot. A filament company called Zero released a whole bunch of new gradients and I wanted to try them out, so what better way to do that than to make Karmen in a whole bunch more colors. You can check it out for yourself on my 3D printing website at dangly3d.com. There's a link to that in the description of the podcast and YouTube as well. Alright, on to today's stories, let's jump right in. This story comes to us from Alwas. No one leaves until 5 p.m, but no overtime? Bet. Several years ago, I worked for an aerospace manufacturing company as a setup operator. You already know this won't end well. Meaning my job was to arrive before shift start, usually 3 or 4 hours early, make sure all the 5-axis mills were calibrated, the ATC automatic tool changer magazines were all loaded correctly, and the tooling was in good condition, nothing dulled or broken. If there was damaged tooling, part of the process was removing the carrier, replacing the cutter, and resetting the cutter height with a gauge, making it so that the tip of every cutter is in the exact same position for that particular holder every time. After being there for several years, the company eventually gets acquired and new management comes in. I'm there from 3 or 4 in the morning until 1 or 2 p.m, sometimes earlier if a new job gets added to the floor. Schedule works fine for me, I get to beat traffic both ways, and the pay is a bit higher due to the differential. After a few weeks, it gets noticed that I constantly leave early and always run over on hours, so they implement a new policy. Work starts at 9 a.m. and runs until 5. You have to be on the floor ready to go when the clock hits 9. I try to explain to my new boss exactly why I leave early, but he's more concerned about numbers and cash flow than what I actually do there. So fine, you want 9 to 5? I'll work 9 to 5. Instead of punching in at 4, I chill in my car till 8:45 and roll into the building, wait till exactly 9 and punch, then head to the floor. Roll up to the first CNC machine on the line and hit the E-stop, which shuts the machine down instantly. Tell the operator this hasn't been set up yet and they need to wait till it's ready. Head down the line and punch every one I pass, telling them the same thing. Not ready, go wait. I start at the end of the line with my platen and gauges and start calibrating the entire magazine, verifying everything in there is in spec and ready to be used. Get the magazine done and home the probe so the machine knows where it is in 3D space, and move to the next. That was about 40 minutes since I took my time. Meanwhile, the rest of the line is dead in the water. Nobody can do any work until their deck passes calibration and is certified to use. I'm partway through the second unit when I have my new manager breathing down my neck. Why is nothing running? What's going on? Etc, etc, etc. I sit back on my haunches and calmly explain to him, this is my job, the one that until today I used to come in hours early to do as to not mess with the production schedule. I need to get this done. Should be ready to start the line in another 5 or 6 hours, boss. I'm told to unlock and get the line moving. No can do. None of these machines are checked and I'm not signing off on the certification until I'm done. Anything not certified is an instant quality control reject. Choose run the line and reject $1 million in parts, or let me finish and lose $1 million in production time, and I go back to my old schedule tomorrow. The plant got a day paid to do nothing. I got the new boss off my back, and he got reamed all to heck for losing a day's production. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, we have one from a user called Furries, I think. It says, morale for any managers out there, question why the team does things the way they do, but don't just come in to alter everything. This is typical of so many malicious compliance stories. New management comes in, doesn't know how anything works, they try to do things their way without paying attention to what is actually working, and everything goes to hell. I stick to what I've said in other videos. Every new manager, every new executive should have to spend time doing the jobs that they are managing. That way, they'll actually know what's going on. Even if it's only a week or 2 weeks, they'll still have a much better understanding of how things need to be managed. This story comes to us from Possible Extro X879. 40 feet exactly? Yes ma'am, it'll be my pleasure. As of the beginning of this year, I work in pest control, and it has been quite a pleasant experience, all things considered. I get to meet some cool people, hear old folks' wisdom, and meet lots and lots of doggos and cats. The downside? The rich snobs and the Karens. I am not a very confrontational person, and will always try to find a middle ground where both sides are happy. However, when I am tired or just don't give a crap, I can be a little petty. One such occasion happened around the end of July or August. When me and my coworkers, got to a service home, we do service the yards, unlike some other companies that will just do interior and foundation of the home. However, since some yards are very large, we only go out to 40 feet and spot treat the remainder of the yard. 99% of people are fine with that. This lady, who is the star of this event, was fine with the 40 feet. I serviced the interior of her home first, and noticed that she was following me around and nitpicking my work. This isn't uncommon, but she was being extra rude, and it was the end of the day, so my patience was nearly gone. When I moved to the outside and began with the yard, she immediately started yelling at me saying, "That's not 40 feet. Our sprayers on a full charge, which mine was, will shoot roughly 25 feet. So I went 25 feet out and was doing a slow walk to cover the 40 feet. I tried to explain this to her, but she yelled, "You said 40 feet, so it has to be 40 feet exactly." 40 feet exactly? My pleasure. Without another word, I went to my truck, grabbed my toolbox, and got out my tape measure and measured out 40 feet. I then did another test spray, and wouldn't you know it, I was spraying 50 feet. I turned to her and said, "I apologize, ma'am. I was overspraying your yard. Let me fix that for you." She returned inside without another word, and I finished up and left. If she did report me, my boss didn't say anything. The one nice thing about her home, though, was she had a cute dog. In the comment section for this one, another user posted a similar story. It's from a user called PebblesV, and it says, I have a story just like this. I used to be a cashier at Sprouts. If you're not familiar, their bulk section is very popular, but rarely used correctly. You're supposed to scoop your item into a bag, then write the PLU on a twist tie tag for your cashier to type in. Oftentimes, people would not have any number at all, purposely write an incorrect number. Once had a guy try to pass off a 3-pound bag of pine nuts as peanuts, or accidentally write an incorrect number. In the case of the latter, if I knew the actual item was more expensive than the item I rang it up as, I would let it slide and just let them have their bag for the cheaper price. Well, one day this lady came in and was carefully watching the monitor. She had a huge bag of raw almonds from the bulk section, and she was kind enough to write the PLU down for me. But it came up as some kind of candy that was significantly cheaper than the almonds. I noticed, but kept it moving. She also noticed, but couldn't help herself. And so in the snottiest, most condescending way, she stops me and is like, I didn't get any candy. So I stopped ringing her in, and in the most pleasant voice I said, "Oh, sure, let me fix that for you." Voided off the candy, and rang her massive bag of almonds in properly, and then continued ringing out her order. She continued to stare at the monitor, and when she realized her attitude cost her about $20 worth of nuts instead of $5 worth of candy, she looked down and quietly said, "I guess I should learn to keep my mouth shut." I just finished up and then wished her a good day. By all means, check the screen to make sure you're being rung up properly. Absolutely. If there is a mistake, definitely say something. I never begrudged anyone who did that. But you don't need to cop an attitude with me about it. especially when it was your mistake in the first place, and I do begrudge that. Alright, a message to all of the Karens out there: if you complain, sometimes you're gonna get exactly what you ask for, even if it isn't exactly what you want. Sometimes it's just better to keep your mouth shut, but if you're a Karen, I know that doesn't apply to you, because you don't know how to keep your mouth shut. This story comes to us from Kooky Tradition 5974. No fashion boots allowed. A few years back when I was in high school, I lived in a small country town as a very flamboyant, obviously queer teenage boy, without even needing to say anything. Needless to say, I was definitely the most popular kid in school, and everyone was totally supportive. Even the staff at the school wasn't the biggest fan of me, unfortunately, even though I was a not-so-straight-A student who never caused any trouble. Luckily, being raised on a very literal farm, my family was and continues to be really supportive. They knew how interested I am in fashion, and my parents surprised me on my birthday with this pair of heeled Doc Marten Chelsea boots I had been saving up for. Obviously, I was ecstatic and wore them constantly, both in and out of school for about a week, before I was dress-coded for them. Unfortunately, this was not my first time being dress-coded because of my tendency to wear more feminine clothing. So I had developed the habit of carrying the dress code pamphlet on me in my bag to prove my innocence, because I was really never breaking any rules. They just happened to not like what I was wearing. I pointed out that there was nothing about boots or heels, and my teacher just sort of scoffed at me and told me to go to the front office. Apparently they had updated it, and if I had read the newsletter that morning, I would have known that. I went up to the front office, and true to what she had said, they had added a rule to the effect of work boots were allowed, but no fashion boots. Unfortunately, it was very obviously targeted because no one, male or female, was wearing anything like that except for me. My parents knew that too. When I got home and told them about it, they were furious for me. My dad took me out the very next day after school to a boot store and quite literally bought me a $300 pair of women's black work boots that were complete with even some sparkly rhinestones on them. Quite frankly, these boots made me look more queer than the first pair ever did, and I loved them. I wore these proudly with a black sparkly hat I already owned to school the next day, and didn't even make it to second period before I was called to the front office for violating dress code. The assistant principal told me these were obviously violating dress code, and I insisted that these were work boots, and practically every other kid wore cowboy boots to school every single day, so there couldn't possibly be a problem with mine. She wouldn't budge, and neither would I, so my parents were called, and it was escalated to the principal. Luckily, we expected this and were prepared. My dad showed up in all of his fresh off the farm dirt-covered glory to my principal's office. The conversation went to the effect of her sitting there telling my father, "Those are very obviously for fashion and are violating dress code," and my father would respond something to the effect of, "How do you know what my kid chooses to wear to work in? Since when is wearing boots breaking dress code? Look at everyone else." And this went back and forth for, quite frankly, an embarrassing amount of time. But by the end, I was allowed to wear my boots. Much to the annoyance of my old high school staff, I wore those darn black sparkly boots practically every day for the rest of my high school experience. And then, 3 years later, when I was long gone in college, my little sister, an open and proud lesbian by the way, entered high school. We just happened to have the same shoe size, and I didn't mind loaning her the boots. She is a junior now and continuing my legacy of terrorizing the homophobic teachers and staff by wearing those same shoes to school to this day, which held up amazing by the way. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, we have one from a user called Van Hoother. It says, "Dress codes not related to actual safety are idiotic. Simply a way for intolerant idiots on the school board to lord it over everyone else. Good on you for fighting back." Alright OP, the fact that they were updating their dress code to obviously target you in particular is absolute bullshit. Pardon my language, but this really gets me pissed off. I sincerely hope that when your sister is done with those boots, that she passes them on to somebody else who will proudly wear them to that school for many more years to come. And if they need to be fixed, well, get them fixed and keep on wearing them, because that legacy needs to continue. If you enjoy daily Reddit stories, I encourage you to follow and add us to your favorites on whichever podcasting platform you enjoy the most. And if you're watching and listening on YouTube, please hit that subscribe button and drop a like on the video. It really helps us out. I thank you for watching and listening. I hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll see you tomorrow.